to develop a project plan, organize a guidance committee, and then implement the plan with the help of the team. She already said her first speech for this project, and now she'll be saying her second speech for this project. Let's welcome Rosabel Young with her speech that is titled, I believe it was Barcelona. Welcome, Barcelona.
Thank you.
If I mispronounce the name, I apologize.
No, it's Barcelona.
Okay, Barcelona. All right.
Well, Barcelona. That's okay. Most people say Barcelona. Well, this was the speech that I had planned for December 21st. I actually went to Barcelona in September. And the program that I've had in Barcelona with my nonprofit and the art exhibits has been going on since 2015. In December of 2015 was when I first opened up my little art gallery, which was an abandoned building in a slum section of Barcelona. The windows were papered up, and it was actually kind of miserable looking, if I might admit. Some of you might remember from my previous speech that this was actually an abandoned clothing store in the throes of some of the worst of the European economic downturn, of the latest economic downturn, actually. And this was what it looked like. Then I installed lights and had it up and running. And the point of having a fundraiser in Redlands was covered in my previous speech, December 7th. Several of you participated, Musa, and I had advice from Frankie and Suzanne, and then hard work and hands-on from Bond, Wang, and I don't see Mona, but definitely Mona participated, literally jumping into the works of the tough part of setting up a local fundraiser. As for a foreign fundraiser, there is a slight difference in that unless you are from that country, you have to learn about the customs and the norms. You don't have to worry, at least for the EU, you don't have to worry as much about the legality as long as you work with somebody and collaborate. For example, with my fundraiser, back in 2016, actually, I collaborated with just local artists from the neighborhood. And some of them were so interested that luckily, because I had good support from the neighborhood, they covered for me. So if officials came by asking for licenses, they would say, oh, she's part of our ayuntamiento volunteer programs. And one of those visitors was none other than the former mayor of Barcelona, Trias, who, by the way, is running for mayor again this October, and actually in March. And I'm going to be there to help him campaign. And he walked by and he said, well, I didn't know who he was at the time, back in 2015. And he said, well, what are you doing here? And I told him all about how I wanted art for brain injury and everything. And I'm sure he knew I didn't have any of the licenses, but I got lucky. And next thing I knew, that slum center, which was Plaza España and had been abandoned, became the new venue for the New Year's Eve fireworks that next season. And since then, we have a couple of 4-star hotels, and the street has been very much upgraded. The reason it was abandoned are two. It's twofold. One was that it was the old Jewish ghetto, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism in Spain. And the other was that it was Franco's hub, which he did to push out the Jews. And then it became extremely right-wing. And so the response of the Catalans was to abandon it. The message is that unknowingly, I ended up in the right place at the right time. But if I hadn't known people locally, I probably wouldn't have had that good luck. The best thing is to really make connections locally. And one of the other things I do is collaborate with local nonprofits. One of them was the Francisco Tamayo Foundation, which donated regularly to the Children's Hospital in Barcelona. And with that connection, then even though I never really sold much, I was able to get some support and encouragement from potential benefactors who saw me as another potential donor to the hospital. For example, I'll share my screen again so that you can see one of the posters that Katia Massa created for me. As you can see in the lower right-hand corner, the Wentworth Norton Group is acknowledged, and then the Matilde Tamayo Foundation is acknowledged. And during the time that I was with Francisco Tamayo, we always had the two logos on all our posters. And he knew people locally, and I didn't, but he brought a lot of people to the gallery, and it gave it some visibility. In fact, as small as it was, you can see we had crowds of people coming in simply because of who knows who and who talked to who by word of mouth. So even though I kind of did it backwards, I was lucky. Whereas in Redlands, I'm starting from ground up. In Barcelona, I already had the connections, and they helped me from the start. I think the key points are also to know some of the local customs for communication and networking. In the United States, we tend to be very businesslike and strict, I think. But in Europe, including Germany and England and Holland and Spain, there is a lot more familiarity and involvement between the employer and the employees. For example, in Japan too, if somebody suffers a loss, the other workers and the boss immediately become involved. And when Francisco Tamayo died, we set up a special event with his daughters and his wife. He died of cancer with complications of COVID in May of 2021. And we held a special event for that. And I think you have to know the local customs and get to know the people before you jump in. I was lucky in that I lived in Spain part of my life. But if you don't, then always make a connection first and then learn the local customs and then learn the legality and have fun events after that through those connections. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.